Shalom, I'm Rabbi Jonathan Ginsburg of the Ezra Habonim Now's Township Jewish Congregation. This video is about Jews covering their head. It's not just for bald spots like mine, but you'll see Jews covering their heads. Now, what kind of covering? Well, this is a lot of times people's favorites, especially kids. This is the easiest kind, just called a Kippah or Yarmulkah, spelled with an R, like Yarmulkah. You'll see people covering their hats with a hat like that. Sometimes when they go into synagogues, because you can get them in mass quantity, you got the simple little cloth dealies like this. Oftentimes you'll see very religious Orthodox men wearing fedoras, and sometimes the groups called the Hasidim wear fur shtreimels, like fur hats, for Shabbat and holidays. I was once on a train wearing a kippah like this, and I can't remember the color of it, but some lady stopped and said, I know that you Jews wear these, I see all these different colors and sizes. Do you have different colors for the different days of the week? Well, no. But sometimes different communities have different colors, like the Orthodox community. The very Orthodox will often have all black, simple black. The modern Orthodox and others will have what's called a kippah sruga, a crocheted kippah like this, with different designs, but the designs really don't matter. Sometimes people will have white ones on Shabbat, but the main point is to cover your head. Now, in the Bible, people probably cover their head because it was hot out there. Cover their neck too, or they'd get sunburnt. And until the Middle Ages, it wasn't required to cover your head, and even in Jewish prayer. The Talmud from 2,000 years ago does say no one should walk more than 4 cubits without their head covered, out of deference and respect to God. I know that Christians, for example, take their hat off as a sign of respect. We put our hat on as a sign of respect, to remember that God is all around us. Now, it doesn't have the same religious sanctification impact as our phylacteries that we wear, the tefillin, or a prayer shawl, but today it is considered more significant. In fact, in my lifetime, I went to an Orthodox day school growing up, and I think I recall the teachers not necessarily wearing a yarmulke, a kippah on the street, but when they came into the house of the school, they would wear one. And today we definitely recommend, when you're studying Torah, when you're praying, when you're eating and reciting the grace after meals, you should have your head covered. Today even women are covering their head. Now, some women cover their head out of modesty when they're married, but non-Orthodox women are more and more covering their head in prayer worship, because they say we should be egalitarian, and if men cover their head for respect, then women should cover their head for respect. I'll tell you a little joke about head covering. A fella is walking along and his hat blows away, and a fella chases it down and brings it back to him and start talking, and it's the rabbi. Rabbi's hat had blown off, and the fellow found it. So the rabbi, out of gratitude, said, "Thank you very much for rescuing my hat. Here's a little reward," and gives him $5. "No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that." "Well, no, I insist." So the man takes the $5, and feeling lucky, he goes to the racetrack, and he said, since the rabbi gave me $5, I'm going to look, and he sees a horse that has the name Derby. He says, "Well, must be my lucky day for hats," so he bets on Derby, and he wins. So then he said, "Well, I'll stay for another race," and he looks down, and he sees that there's another horse in the next race named Fedora. So he bets on that horse wins. Third race, there's a horse named Stetson. He bets on that horse, and that horse wins. And then he loses all his money on the last race, comes home very upset. He tells his wife the story, and she says, "Well, who'd you bet on the last race?" He says, "Chateau." That's the French word for hat. She goes, "No, you dummy, it's chapeau. It's with a P, not a T. By the way, who won that last race?" He says, "I don't know, some Japanese horse named Yarmulke." So what's a Yarmulkah? Well, Y-A-R-M-U-L, Yarmulkah. And I think the best way to understand it is if you understand it as 2 Aramaic words. The first one being yira, which means to be in awe of, and the second one, malka, for the king. When you wear a yarmulke, you're being in awe of the king. Kippah simply means covering, and it really doesn't matter much how you cover your head, but that you do out of a sense of sanctification and to remind you of God's presence. And so those are some of the basic ideas about covering your head in Judaism. It's really, the size doesn't matter, and the angle. Some kids from certain yeshiva Orthodox worlds will kind of lean it on the side. There's a group in Israel of religious Zionists, Rav Kook, that wear really big ones. But the point is simply to cover your head. And I think it's Fiddler on the Roof, if I recall, Tevye, in responding to people about the Jewish experience, is we always keep our hat on because we never know when we have to leave suddenly. But really it's about sanctification and being aware of God's presence.